Okay. um, I hope someday that we can all meet in person sometime really, really soon. Um, we can gather and break bread together and we can hone and hug. But until that time, we'll deal with the broadband issues that we have to connect us. And that, fortunately we have that. Thank you everyone for who is shared a little bit of trauma. This is really, really helpful to me. And I think it is to you as well. And the very diverse perspectives that we all are focused on in trauma. I just want to maybe lay some foundational framing to this with my story. I really believe that everyone here, including myself, have been taught many different techniques to care for our community and care for ourselves. And we know a lot. With the talk that we're going to have for the next hour and 45 minutes, I am going to attempt to kind of clear your mind of all that stuff that we've been taught, to touch stuff that you know, to have you touch and be leaning on what you know inside. Because I don't believe I'm going to share anything today with anyone that you don't already know. But the difference is, I think that we are so structured today that we have kind of isolated what we know to what we're supposed to do. And I want to connect both of them. So I'm currently in Seattle. I know it's cold back home. I woke up this morning, it was 39 degrees. But the difference is we pay 9 cents a kilowatt hour in Seattle. So I got a heater on, instead of 28, 29, 30, 32 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's chilly, but I know back home you guys are cold because I've been on meetings all day. I come here because when I feel like I'm at home during the pandemic, I've been here 6 times. I have a home in Seattle. And the reason why I'm here actually has to do with trauma. When I'm home, I feel like I'm at Sandy's in the shore break constantly. Like constantly, I'm just in shore break. And when I'm here, I get an opportunity to maybe be in like a air traffic control tower and kind of separate and so to watch everything so that I can move deliberately and cautiously, but so that I am addressing my own ability to be effective and efficient. So I was just talking with someone today, a man who called me about his business and was asking, about a program that we recently did for the state and the city called Aloha Connects Innovation. And he gave this adage that I think all of us have heard before. And, I'm going to type it into the chat, and then I want you guys to type what the second one is. So what's the first one? So the first one is, and I know there's hundreds of you going to write the second one, so it'll come up fast. Give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. Okay, so we come up with these themes, and is that a true statement? Yeah. But there's something so special about Hawaii, in my opinion, that allows us to address the trauma that comes out from the first two. Give a man a fish, feed him for a day. teach a man to fish, feed him for a lifetime. I disagree. Because what if we don't have any more fish? See, the third one is we got to teach them, don't catch all the fish. The reason why I'm saying that is we come up with solutions quite often that we do not recognize, promulgate trauma. And then what we've got to do is we've got to address it and fix it. Instead of leaning on what we know. Yes, our people knew how to fish, but they also knew how not to catch all the fish. And one of the reasons why we have so much trauma in the world today is because we taught everybody how to fish, but we didn't teach them, don't catch it all. So Derek asked me to share this, and it's so much of what I'm going to share today is based on, this very special time that I had with Aunty Pilahi. So Aunty Pilahi Paki, as Derek mentioned, was known as one of the keepers of the secrets of Hawaii. Regardless of what your heritage is, if you could go back into your heritage, now I'm Hawaiian, Chinese, Irish, my daughter's Hawaiian, Chinese, Irish, English, French. I know if my daughter could go back into every one of the different aspects of her heritage, she would find people in her life that we call librarians. And those are folks who had the keys to the library of knowledge and wisdom. Everybody has them, and it's been passed on through generations. Maybe it's changed a little bit now, but because things were oral, they were passed on. And Aunty Pilahi was one of our librarians. She was given this gift of being a keeper of the keys on April 13, 1961, and it was given to her by Ka'au'analuahini Ka'opua, known as Tutu Man to us. He was born in 1859. He was 102 years old. The best way to characterize Tutu Man is Yoda. Today, the majority of Olohelua who teach today learn from Charles Kent, or are descendants of Charles Kent's teaching. The person who taught Charles Kent was Ka'au'analuahini Ka'opua. He was a very, very powerful man. And he was about to pass away. He called two men to his side. And he said, go find this woman and bring her to me. You'll find her on Oahu. He's known as the patriarch of Kona. And so they flew to Oahu. They went and found Aunty Pilahi, put her on a plane, took her to Kona Hospital. And on April 13th, 1961, he did what is known in our heritage as Ha. And that's how Aunty Pilahi became the librarian. He passed his Ha on to her. Now, before people get all nuts on how this happens, I'll just maybe help you all to connect in ways that you can find your own connection. I believe what wasn't passed was information. What I believe was passed was a frequency. A frequency to what we today call the cloud. What is the cloud? The cloud is where everything gets stored, or resources and data and information. Well, I also believe Google, Apple, Microsoft, Yahoo, Amazon, none of them created the cloud. God created the cloud since the beginning of time. All of my words, all of your thoughts, all of your emotions go somewhere. It's energy, and it just transforms itself. These words go. Today, we have tools that allow us to access the cloud. These tools have frequencies. And I believe throughout all history, people from all over the world have had access to inspiration and knowledge of where information goes, where knowledge goes. For some, like us, it comes through the Ha. For others, it can come through Oli, for chants, prayers, meditation, heavy physical exercises, trinkets. People all over the world have had methods to tap in. But for us, one of the methods was the Ha. And Aunty Pilahi said when she received Tutu Man's Ha, his last breath, after she had basically awoken she said that it felt like getting hit by lightning. But now she knew everything. She had access to it. And so in 1970, publicly, she shared something that she had been sharing privately. And what she shared was, in the 21st century, the world would search for peace and they'll look to Hawaii because Hawaii has the key, and that key is aloha. Now, when she shared that, she did not say that aloha was the answer, and she didn't say Hawaii had the answer. She said they'll look for peace and they'll look to Hawaii because Hawaii has the key, and that key is aloha. In other words, what do keys do? She said aloha is a key, and keys lock and they unlock. They put things away and they open things up. And I really believe what aloha does is supposed to unlock ourselves. And so today is about that. It's just in the start of that. Aunty Pilahi's mother, Aunty Roselay, and my great-grandmother, Kapoliahi Yaka na Paipai, were sisters. There were at least 24 siblings. Tutupoli, my great-grandmother, was the eldest. And so Aunty Pilahi was a grandaunt to me. And when I was 13 years old, after a very long meeting with adults, I was the only child in the room. There might have been 40 to 50 people. After a very long meeting of working with adults, maybe about 5 or 6 hours, and Moon knows, when Aunty Pilahi talked, she was funny, she was vibrant, she was kolohe, she was serious, she was graceful, she was so intelligent. And she spent 6 hours nurturing and helping people to deal with trauma. Incredible. And she did it by sharing stories and sharing who we are, where we are. And it was a process of working with folks. And after 6 hours, everyone was amazing. It was almost like something heavy had lifted throughout the entire time. So she excused everyone and she says, Pao, we can do this again. Go home, we'll go eat, feed the family. So people started to leave. And it was then that she walked up to me and she said, Pono, come walk with me. I was 13 years old, 1976. So we went for a walk, and we didn't walk far. We just walked far enough that no one could hear. And it was then that she stopped, she turned to me and she said, I'm going to share something with you, but you are not allowed to share this with anyone else. Aunty Pilahi was one of the keepers of our language. And she said, I am not going to teach you how to speak Hawaiian. Now, what's interesting is I never asked. But she said, I'm not going to teach you how to speak Hawaiian. And I think it's because so many people came to ask, so she taught. She said, I'm going to teach you how to think Hawaiian. There's a difference from the inside, not from the outside. And she said, as long as you think Hawaiian, regardless of the language or the words you use, it will be the language of aloha. And aloha seeks to connect significance and relevance with others. Regardless of the language I use, it will be the language of aloha. She said that almost every Hawaiian word has 3 interpretations. There is a literal translation known as ho'opukaku. There's the kauna, that beautiful, poetic, beautiful, symbolic method of conveying our words and our thoughts. And she said those were taught. And then she said there's a third, but the third is not taught, it's passed. And it is passed to the learned ones known as the kahuna, the learned ones. And she said, I am going to share with you the deeper meanings of what it means to live Hawaii. She didn't say Hawaiian, Hawaii, our people and our place. And she expressed to me that I was not allowed to share this with anyone else. This was just between she and I. And what she wanted me to do was practice, that I needed to practice what she was about to share. I could not talk to anybody else about it. It was just she and I, and all she wanted me to do was practice. And in my practice, I would learn. I don't learn by teaching. I don't learn by exchanging it for value. I learn by practice. And she proceeded to share with me interpretations of the words that she was sharing with others that I had never heard before. She shared about aho nui and ha'a. She shared about akahai and olu olu, and then ended with lokahi. Notice the sequence in which I just shared these 5 words. When she shared it with other people, she shared akahai, lokahi, olu olu, ha'a, aho nui. When she shared it with me, she began with aho nui, the last A. Totally different. Okay. Those of you who have never seen Aunty Pilahi, this is Aunty Pilahi. Born in 1910, died in 1985 at 75 years of age. It was 9 years before she passed when we went on this walk. It was only one time. It never happened again. We never spoke of it again. When we would see each other at family gatherings, she would just ask me how I was. It was just one time all of this stuff happened. This is the prophecy that she gave in the 21st century, regarding the 21st century. And I inserted this because I want you to just consider hinaku yin yang, always the opposite sides or the complementary sides of each other, the whole. Because this is so significant to everything I'm sharing today. One side, teach a man to fish, you feed him forever. If we don't focus on the other side, we're gonna run out of fish. So aloha was to see the whole contextual perspective and the significance and relevance of it. What you see here is what she shared with everyone else in sequence. Akahai lokahi olu olu ha'a aho nui. Akahai, kindness to be expressed with tenderness. So you see the literal translation and then you see its expression. What you see now in red is what Aunty Pilahi shared with me, are these very deep philosophical, spiritual meanings of these words. And she didn't begin with akahai, she began with aho nui. And why did she begin with aho nui with me? Because she said, for us, it always begins with our ha. And so she's going to begin with aho nui because it begins with our ha. Hawaii, ohana, hanai, hapai, ha. And she told me that aho nui means waiting for the moment, because a moment will come. And I need not be anxious because it will come. And it may not come in my lifetime, but it will come. And I am always prepared and preparing others for the moment. Imagine what she just did to this 13-year-old boy when she says, you are aho nui. You're waiting for the moment that will come, and it might not come in your lifetime. She just expanded the purpose of my life beyond my time as a child. What does patience look like? Patience could look like, what does aho nui look like to me? Present. Watching, waiting. She told me an eagle, a hawk, and a shark are never patient. They're always watching, waiting. Then she went to ha'a, and other people know ha'a as humility. I know it as empty. She said ha'a is to empty yourself, to come empty. Because only when you're empty can you receive. Most people come full or empty, they come full. Then she stood right in front of me and she faced me and she just did this. Right into my face. And she said, ha, ha, the moment of emptiness. She said, the significance of that is all connection is preceded by a moment of emptiness. We want to connect with people. We must first establish a moment of emptiness. She helped me to understand that we call it ha, this energy, this source. If you're Japanese, you call it ki. She said, if you're Chinese, they call it chi, and it's all the same thing, but we recognize it through our breath. So it comes from our na'au through the ha. But she said, same, same. Then she jumped to akahai and she said, akahai is grace. And she said, what grace is you leave things and places and people better than you found them. That's grace. She then jumped to olu olu. Other people know olu olu as agreeable. I know it as gentle. Gentle, like I'm carrying a baby. I'm not here to bruise or scar this baby. And she told me Hawaii and our people are the baby. But each one of these also has that other side. See, we know the male and the female, the hina and the ku, the yin and the yang. So what many folks know about aloha is that beautiful hina side, but there's also the ku. And so the gentleness could be considered the hina. What's the ku? She says it's gentle, not to harm or bruise this baby. But what's the ku? Strong. Strong enough to carry the baby without dropping it. Strong enough to carry you, but don't you ever drop the baby, she told me. And every one of these interpretations has the ku. And then she ended up with lokahi. And other people know lokahi as unity. She said unity is making people one. She said, that's not lokahi, that's ho'okahi. She said, the problem is not Hawaiian, the problem is English. We don't know what we're talking about. She said, alokahi, lokahi. She said, lokahi means unbroken, whole, connected, not making people one, already being one. That's lokahi. And she said, we all enter this world lokahi, but our political, education, and economic systems teach us that we're broken, and we spend the rest of our time trying to make ourselves one again. And it was then that she said that I would be a storyteller. But when I tell stories, I'm to tell them the old way, and it's not to win people to me, but to tell them in a way that comes up inside of them. They go, ah, it's me. They experience connection, they experience lokahi. These were the things she shared. There was a lot more that she shared, and every year or more seems to just come up and return. But this was the foundation that she shared with me. And she asked me, after she had spoken with me, I don't know how long we were together, if I can find this. She said, after she shared, can I find what it means to respond with aloha? When things are good and when things are not good, can I find it? I'm 58 years old now this year. And so this has been a 45-year search for this answer. It's like she gave me a pair of glasses that I have been searching for this answer in everything. When it's good and when it's not good, what's the aloha response? And the concept is to seek to connect. So I'll stop now. Sharing. Okay. because I want to see everybody. So when she passed away in 1985, Aunty Pilahi didn't give me permission to share what I'm sharing with you today. So I never thought I would ever share this with anyone. She asked me to practice, which meant that it needed to be a lifestyle. It need not be a theory. And I had to figure out how to practice. She did not tell me how to practice. She just said, practice. And I think that there's an ingenious thing that happened in my life with her because of it. Think about it. She's talking to a child, and the child doesn't know that you cannot practice. And the reason why the child doesn't know that is because a child cannot ask an adult, how do you practice ha'a, empty? And because this child cannot speak to an adult to ask the adult, how do you practice emptiness? There's no adult to tell him, you cannot, you just got to do it. Cannot. This little boy believed there must be a way to practice because she said to practice, but I couldn't ask anybody. And what ended up happening is I developed exercises that the outcome, if I did this exercise, would be grace. The outcome, if I did this exercise, would be waiting for the moment. The outcome, if I did this exercise, is emptiness. And you guys, it's a trip. Because I hear so many people teaching everybody what we need to know because they do not know how to practice. It's theory. When Mr. Miyagi was teaching Daniel-san, because Daniel-san asked him how to learn how to defend himself, and he finally succumbed, what does he tell Daniel-san? Come tomorrow morning. He picks up these two things. He said, what is this? And he starts to play with them like they're instruments. He says, Japanese sander. He says, okay, sand my floor. Left circle, right the circle, left the circle, right the circle. Breathe in, breathe out. At first, Daniel, he's kind of excited. He's like, okay, I'm going to have some fun with this. Sand the whole floor. Left the circle, right the circle. Come back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Come back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. What's the next thing? He's holding a paintbrush and paint. Go paint the fence. Up and down. After you finish paint the fence, paint my house, side to side. After the second day, he's kind of pissed. I'm painting this man's house. I'm painting his fence. Good, Daniel-san. Don't forget to breathe. Come back tomorrow. Tomorrow? Okay. He comes back. Wash and wax my car.
Is what I'm being, man. Now we made a deal here.
Did you guys hear that?
So you're supposed to teach and I'm supposed to learn, remember? For 4 days I've been busting my ass. I haven't learned a goddamn thing.
You learned plenty.
I learned plenty. I learned how to sand your decks, maybe. I wax your car, paint your house, paint your fence. I learned plenty, right?
Not everything is as same.
Oh, bullshit. I'm going home, man.
Daniel-san. Daniel-san.
What?
Come here. Show me sand the floor.
I can't move my arm, all right? What are you doing? What are you... Ow! Ow, what are you doing?
Now show me sand the floor.
How did you do that?
Shut up!
Sand the floor.
Hey, stand up. Show me sand floor. Sand floor. Sand floor. Big sucker. Sand floor. Sand floor. Yes. Now show me wax on, wax off. Hey.
Wax on, wax off.
Wax on, wax off. Hey, wax on, hot. Wax off, hot. Concentrate. Look at my eye. Lock a hand. Thumb inside. Wax on, hot. Wax off, hot. Wax on, hot. Wax off, hot. Wax on. Wax off. Ush. Show me penta fence. Up, down. Up, down, up, down. Other side. Look eye. Always look eye. Show me paint the house. Side, side. Lock wrist. Side, side. Side, side. Yes. Show me wax on, wax off. Yes! 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 Show me paint the fence. Yes! 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 Show me side to side. Yes! 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 Show me sand or floor. Yes! 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 Stop! Stop! Oi. Hey, look eye. Always look eye. Come back tomorrow.
I hear so much about emotional intelligence. People tell us why it's important. They tell us what it is. And I don't see anybody really teaching people the exercises that allow us to be emotionally intelligent. If we were to survey Daniel-san before he just had that experience, Mr. Miyagi would have probably got scathing remarks as a teacher. Daniel thought this man was abusing him and using him. But what Mr. Miyagi was doing was giving him the exercises that would allow him to do what he wanted to do. And I had no idea when Aunty Pilahi and I went on that walk that she was inspiring something in a child to find exercises that would allow me to be aho nui ha'aha'a akahai olu olu lokahi. And that it wouldn't be a theory, it would be a lifestyle that needed to be recovered because we had forgotten. That it couldn't be referenced, it had to be reverenced. So I'm going to share a story, a couple of them. It was about 4 years ago when I had we had about 200 or 300 students. I'll step back also a little bit further. In 2014, I was flying to Seattle for some time away. It was 6 months after my kidney surgery, where I'd given a kidney to a friend. And an article came on my phone as I'm flying to Seattle on leadership. And in this, 7 of Hawaii's premier leaders, C-suite leaders, senior executives, were interviewed on leadership. And I'm really not interested in what a lot of people have to say about it, because I just feel like so much is recycled information. But the one person that I was interested in reading his responses was Colbert Matsumoto. And the reason why Colbert and I are friends, Colbert is also a martial artist. People also may not know that Colbert is an ordained Zen minister. So there's very strong foundations of philosophy. And I wanted to read what Colbert's perspectives were. And at one point, the author of the article asked a very courageous question, and I started laughing. Because the question is, who are the leaders that you most admire in Hawaii today? And I laughed because how anyone answers this question to me reveals what kind of leader they are. Because are you even going to throw down a name? It's risky. So the first person was Governor Aoshi, and he went right where I expected him to. He's a family friend. He said, Governor Burns. And I just thought, oh, that's not going to help our trauma. The next guy was a CEO of Central Pacific Bank. He's a good man. And he says, for banking, Walter Dodds was great. But I had good bosses and bad bosses, and I learned from both. So he's not going to throw down any names. And the next person was Colbert. And he says, who do I consider to be visionary leaders in Hawaii today? He says, I'll give you 3 names. And the first person he named was Nainoa Thompson. And I 100% agreed. Absolutely. And he expressed why, and the significance of the recovery of knowledge and the significance of the va'a to the Pacific and the world. I turned the page and the second name was mine, and I could not believe it. So I came home and I went to breakfast with Colbert, and Colbert was the first person to do this. He says, I know you have a process for how you develop yourself. He says, I know. And I want you to consider how you would teach other people, because people want to learn. How do you have this spiritual, physical, emotional, intellectual discipline? I want you to consider how you would teach other people. And so it was 6 months later that I started the Higher Skills Academy cohort to share the exercises that I had developed. My estimate is now there's somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 people who have learned in the past 6 years. And that's all we share. We share what the exercises are. So it was a few years ago when I had somewhere between 200 or 300 where I called 6 individuals and I asked them if they would get close to me. Because I really needed to understand what was happening inside of me as I go through my process, because I don't know. Just live, right? And it was during one of our meetings, I call them my SEAL Team 6 group. But it was during one of these meetings that one of them asked me, where do the stories come from? And I took them through a process of touching their stories based on how I find my stories. And then the second question after I took them through that process was, how do you have the courage to share it? And as soon as I heard that, my knee-jerk reaction was, this isn't courage. But I'm looking at 6 individuals, one who's a physician, 3 of them who have their masters in social work, 2 of them who are educators. And they're afraid. So that tells me this is spooky. So why am I not afraid? What is it that liberates me to be able to share my mo'olelo with people, my stories? I thought, wow. I left them, and for 3 days I wrestled with the question, why am I not tethered? And on the 3rd day, it nailed me. And I called them up and I said, the reason why this isn't fear is because my stories are medicine. They're la'au lapa'au. And one of them said, this isn't metaphorical, this is literal. I said, yes. The stories are medicine. I see these stories as healers. And it's almost like, you know, my Olohe says, okay, we need to go pick some popolo berries, Pono. So we go out and we're looking for the popolo berries. I find it, I pick it, I can take it back to him. What happens is in my life, I notice trauma and I'm looking for the medicine. And then I find it and I pick it and it goes in my medicine pack. And I got this backpack that's loaded with thousands of doses of medicine. And then what happens is I meet somebody like Emma Masani, and I might hear something and I see something, and then I pull out my medicine, my mo'olelo, my story, and I share it with her so that she can dose. She can experience the healing of the mo'olelo, the story. So I'll give you a quick example. In 2018, I was gifted with 149 other people by Laureen Powell Jobs, who's Steve Jobs' widow. And she founded her organization called the Emerson Collective, which is her foundation. And she invited 150 people from around the world to be in community together. She called them doers. And we were going to have a festival of doers, so a do fest. And all she expected was that we would be together for 4 days together. No agenda other than I want you to meet, to learn from each other, to share, to connect, to support. And on the very first day, there was a woman who stood up during a Q&A after the director of the design school at MIT had done his presentation, Joy Ito. This woman stood up and she started to share with everybody that she used to work at the United Nations, and she was responsible for bringing community to the United Nations, rural communities, island communities to the UN. But her experience was that the UN is a very male, white-dominated organization, and they actually marginalize and gentrify communities. That was her experience. And she was sharing this real heaviness, but it was, to me, beautiful. Because I see the yin and the yang, yeah, the whole. And wow, she's powerful. You know, what's interesting is as I'm observing the way that I'm watching the designers like Joy Ito, is they're treating this like it's just data. Like, this is a survey, we're doing our EIS. Okay, we got to take that into consideration when we design. That's how they're taking it. And yet I'm saying to myself, wow, this lady's teaching. This isn't survey work. Anyway, I was so moved by her, and all week I watched her and I wanted to meet with her. And finally on the last day, I showed up, the last person for breakfast with her. So we ended up talking for 8 hours. And at one moment, she says to me, Pono, I need to tell you a story about refugees and immigrants. And I said, Susan, I am so very sorry, but I just found some medicine. So could you pause your story so that I can type it in my phone before I forget? And she's looking at me like, okay. She doesn't see a pharmacy, right? So I type it in my phone. And then she looks at me and she said, what was the medicine you found? I said, the medicine I found is that we have named these people wrong. They are not refugees and immigrants. They are navigators and peace seekers. And as soon as I say that, she's first stunned and then she starts crying. I said, see, Susan, if I call someone a refugee and immigrant, what might they be? A problem that I've got to go and take care of now. But if I see someone as a navigator and peace seeker, what are they? They're a resource. If someone calls themselves a refugee and immigrant, what are they? They're a problem that they need help. But if they call themselves a navigator and peace seeker, what are they? They're a resource for me. Here are people who are fleeing what should be in this world, the safest, most sacred place, home, navigating through hell, seeking peace. And the courage, the knowledge, the wisdom, the resilience that they're learning on this journey is what we need. They're bringing it to me. We talk about resilience. These people have it. They are not refugees and immigrants. They are navigators and peace seekers. I expounded on it a little bit more with the relational metaphor of Hiki Analia, who Nainoa had promised and sent to be with us in this Dew Fest. And how Lehua was captain of the ship. And how Lehua was running from Hurricane Lane and 2 other hurricanes. Possibly the first woman, female navigator to navigate a double hull canoe to the North Pacific in the history of the world. And what is she in right now? The most dangerous oceans in the entire world. So after 10 days, Nainoa told this story. He said, after 10 days, I got on the phone and I said, Lehua, turn that canoe around. You don't know where you are. You have had no stars, only clouds. There's 3 hurricanes. You need to come home right now. This is too dangerous. And what does Lehua do? Nainoa, I'm not turning the canoe around. We cannot come home. You promised we were going. You promised we would come. You said it was too dangerous to stay tied to the dock. We cannot come home. We have to go. Nainoa's scared. Give me one more day. Give us one more day. Tomorrow the stars will come out. One more day. You know, you folks, I believe that until Nainoa and Lehua have this conversation, the stars don't come out. Because this is about the relationship between the teacher and the student. Is the teacher really willing to let the student go? And is the student really willing to let the teacher go? And what happens is the next day the stars come out. They know exactly where they are. They pivot that canoe and they come in 3 days early. So I said, so Susan, what do? We're the doers. We all go down to the wharf. We all go down to greet, to welcome, to celebrate, to honor the navigators. Why? Because of what they're bringing to us. Here we are the doers and they're bringing what we need. Susan is sobbing. And she says, I'm sorry, I need to submit your name to the United Nations. You need to go share this medicine. That has nothing to do with me. It's a revelation. Look at how she's dosing on my medicine. She don't even need to tell her story anymore. Trauma. So it was about 1.5 years later when the founder of the sustainability school at Harvard and I were connected, and she leads something called Exec Ed at Harvard University, where they bring in the largest corporations in the world, their CEOs, to have, this year it's going to be 3 months, a duration of training in their leadership in relationship to sustainability and values, cultural values. And she asked me to join her faculty to go and teach these folks. So we got on a phone call early one morning because we had never met before, but she had found me. And I was sharing this story about the medicine. And I told her, you know, that I was meeting with this group of students from UCLA. I'm affiliated with the Center for Diverse Leadership in Science at UCLA. I'm the mentor and coach for their program. And as I was sharing this story about the refugees and immigrants being navigators and peace seekers, I asked all of these lab workers and these fellows and students, when I found that medicine, who was that medicine for? And I said, I'm not asking you this question because I want an answer. I'm asking this question because I want you to consider my answer. And so I said that medicine was for me. All of my medicine is for me first. When Susan said to me, I need to tell you a story about refugees and immigrants, I had heard that term many times. I listened to the news. I hear the political rhetoric. But this time, somebody said, I need to tell you. And as soon as I got that you, I felt the burden of the trauma that I was about to carry. See, I have this kind of like what I call internal sensors inside of me that experience trauma. And my sensor goes off. I notice it. And now what am I going to do to address it? And so now I'm looking for my medicine. So she says, I need to tell you a story about refugees and immigrants. Boom, 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 boom. As fast as that happens, Susan, I'm so sorry, but can you pause your story? Because I just found some medicine and I need to type it in my phone. To shift them from being refugees and immigrants to navigators and peace seekers, from being the problem to be the resource. Now I don't have the trauma. I said, it's for me. And once it healed me, now I know it will heal other people. So Leith Sharp, who is that professor at Harvard, says, you have opened a portal I have been searching for 5 years, and you did it in 5 minutes. She said, you really need to come teach and work with all these CEOs. The reason why I'm sharing this is I'm not honoring myself. Please, I don't need attention. That's not my goal. I'm wanting you folks to recognize what you know inside. It cannot be theory. It must be lifestyle. And the best way to get it is to dig it back up from our own genealogy and our own heritage, because it's there. It's in everyone on this call's DNA. But we have become so educated in a system of politics, economics, and knowledge, education, that the way to engage is to correct, not to connect. Our entire system of education, economics, and politics is based on correction, not connection. And when Aunty Pilahi took me on the walk, it was about connection. But it had to be developed into a lifestyle. Why am I sharing this with you today? How come when she told me, when she died and didn't give me permission, it was because in 2010, after 34 years, one morning, Aunty Pilahi came to see me. And she said, Pono, time to share. So after 34 years, this kind of long time, wax on, wax off, or sand the floor, now it was time to share. And so that's why for the past 11 years, I have been sharing this. And it is like a martial art, folks. It looks like this. I'm waiting for the moment. Aho nui. I'm waiting. When the moment comes, I must go empty. I empty myself. And then with grace, akahai, and olu olu gentleness, time to reconnect. So Susan and I are now in a relationship. And the moment comes. And I empty myself, and the medicine comes. And then with grace and gentleness, time to reconnect Susan. But before Susan, it was me. So now let's take it to a big potential crisis. That this happened in 2018, this event. But this past year, we experienced what happened with George Floyd and a country just so inflamed on inequity. And so now what we're doing is we're fighting for equity. Why? And what are we really, really trying to cause? So I'm going to give you an illustration of what equity might look like or inequity might look like. You know, I go outside at home and sometimes, you know, eat a cheeseburger and you have some extra bread because there's pigeons flying around, and then you go and throw the bread on the ground. We've all done this. And then the birds come, yeah? The birds come. And usually I notice also what comes is a bully pigeon. Usually there's one big bird comes in, bully pigeon, and pretty soon that bully pigeon is scattering all the other birds. Body blocking, and they might even have a crew of bully pigeons that are all coming together and they kind of work in concert. And those bully pigeons got all the resources. They always get to eat from the trough. And then all the other pigeons are left with the spoils. I know as soon as I said bully pigeon, you guys all saw them because you've seen it before. Something, yeah? To go and put illustration to a theory equity that maybe helps people to understand what this is all about. Maybe this is about not being a bully pigeon, but allowing all the pigeons who are coming to eat so that they don't have to fight against the bully pigeons anymore who dominate and control. Amazing what we can see in nature if we look at it, yeah. So also at that event, that Dew Fest, the night before, there was a woman that I met. I was walking through Mare Woods, which is one of the last surviving redwood forests on the planet. And it was funny, you guys. Laureen takes 150 of us, buses us up to Mare Woods. They close this national park, kick everybody out just so that we could have it. I mean, that's called bully pigeoning, man. We got them. But, you know, I guess when you're a $20 billion woman, you can do stuff like that. So we got it for ourselves. And it was, they wanted to replicate what happened after World War II, which was, that is where the United Nations documents were signed. It's amazing. After World War II, delegates from around the world came together in nature to dedicate, we would never do this again. And yet we're doing this again. So it was, let's go back now. We got 150 of us. Let's rededicate to take care of the planet and the people on her. So it's funny because we're all standing at the gate, and to greet us is a Tibetan monk who teaches at MIT, and Andy Karsner, who's the managing partner, and he's a good friend of mine today. And so Andy and this man are standing in the front, and they greet us, and they said, you know, one of the highest disciplines we believe anybody can have is the discipline of silence. And so as you enter this cathedral of the giants of the planet, the great redwoods, we encourage everyone that you would observe this discipline, silence. Now, everybody will be given a stone, a pohaku. And what we suggest you do is you go through the forest, you carry this stone, and you put your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts, your passions, your hopes in it. So it's a very somber moment, you know, for all these powerful people from around the world. I mean, even Thomas Friedman was there, John Kerry. I mean, you know, Han Solo. I mean, there was some powerful folks. So somber, everybody enters. I promise you guys, these people don't walk 50 yards, pretty soon everybody's talking. Hugging trees, taking pictures, making all kind of noise. You know why? Because it's not their discipline. Their discipline is noise. It's not silence. They don't exercise that muscle. They're not bad people. That's just, they don't exercise it. So they're making all kind of noise. So I kind of just laugh and I hang back because I kind of just want to be by myself and not hear all the noise. So let these people go, and I'm going by myself, walking through the forest. And I go around this bend and I see this beautiful tree. I mean, they're all gorgeous. But what was beautiful to me about this one was its trauma. I looked at her base and she had char. On her trunk was missing a huge swath of bark, and it was wounded. She was black. And she wasn't tall and soaring like all the other trees. And I just thought, wow, okay, this is the one for me. So I went up to that scar and I looked under it and I saw the most beautiful redwood. And I said, wow, you are so beautiful. So I put my hand on her and I closed my eyes and I just, why? She gave me all my oxygen. Time for me to give back. I'll give her my carbon dioxide. She gives me her oxygen. I turn around, folks, this is not a performance. This is my lifestyle. I turn around and I hear this woman say, your reverence is palpable. So I turn and I see this woman who's in her 60s. And I said, I didn't know anybody was watching me. Your reverence is palpable. In other words, she can feel me. I said, when Captain Cook came to Hawaii, the estimates were upwards of 800,000 people based on food production. And within less than 100 years, there were less than 50,000 of us. That is total decimation of our people. And just like this redwood, this is the remaining 3% of what was here on the planet. And for whatever reason, this tree and I are still here. Whatever reason. Families, lines of sponsorship gone forever, and this tree and I are still here. And so I so relate to this tree. So this woman says, I am a pediatric surgeon at Baylor University. I teach pediatric surgery. And I'm changing the direction of my life. And I'm pursuing the seminary. And I found a program that I think supports me, and it's liberal enough for me because I really want to become a pastor. And the responsibility that we as students have is that we have to find a spiritual mentor. She said, would you be my spiritual mentor? Excuse me? Would you be my spiritual mentor? Why are you asking me this question? You don't even know my name. I don't know. My gut is telling me to ask you. You guys, I'm going for a walk in the forest. Is there a light flashing on my head? Ask him. No. I think that people know what they're looking for when they see it. So we ended up talking for 4 hours. The next morning, she leaves very early. She returns to Dallas. Then I meet Susan. Mary, when she gets home, I guess she starts watching videos of talks I've given, and she texts me back. She said, can we begin my training by you teaching me how to practice aloha? I said, oh, okay. So I was trying to figure out, how do I do that with a woman who doesn't want to impose in my life? She doesn't want to be Mahaoi. She doesn't want to talk to me on the phone. She only wants to email or text. And I said, how do I do this in this way and not have it be transactional? I wrestled with myself for 4 weeks. And finally, after 4 weeks, I said, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And I'm just going to do it. And we'll see what happens. She'll be a cohort of 1. So I said, I'm going to begin tomorrow. I'm going to send you an email. I want you to observe this for the next 7 days. All I want you to do is observe and practice this perspective in your personal and professional life. Have some method of journaling. I'll begin with aho nui. Next week, I'll send you ha'aha. And that's how my training goes. The only thing I ask is that you not speak to anybody about what you're doing. No one. If you need to talk to somebody, talk to me, nobody else. Why do I do that? Because Aunty Pilahi told me I couldn't talk to nobody. It all had to be internal work, not external work. You know, quite often we get people together and we teach them and we treat it like it's a collaborative experience. How are you feeling today? What do you think? I never saw a surgeon or heard of a surgeon who's about to do her rounds in the hospital say, okay, all my patients meet me in the cafeteria. How is everybody doing today? Want to talk about community spread? We kill everybody in the hospital that way. Yet that's how we teach leadership. It's a personal thing before it becomes a community thing. So I started sharing and Mary said, this is perfect because tomorrow I'm going to be in Colorado for 1 month with my classmates. It's not going to be virtual. Now we're all going to be at seminary together. Perfect. I can start. So I send her aho nui on Monday. Tuesday morning, she sends me a text and she says, do you have a moment to chat? Okay, that's a red flag. She didn't want to talk to me. Now she has to talk with me. So I get on the phone, what's going on? And she says, yesterday was our first day of class. In my class, there are 9 of us. We are all white students. Our professor is a Black woman. And on the very first day of class, she decided to talk about Black Lives Matter. And she accused all of us of being privileged white people. And I got angry. And I totally failed aho nui. I reacted. And she said, and I went right down that rabbit hole and I pushed back. And she started to bully me and this other guy. And I think my classmates recognized it because they were crying that she was bullying us. You know, I'm a professor too, and I'm a teacher, and I believe you challenge your students, but you don't push them off a cliff. And I said, okay. And she says, well, I have the class in a few hours and I'd like some strategies. Okay, let's time out. What do you think we should do? What should we do? What's the strategy? What's the highest we could hope for? Now, this is 2 years before George Floyd, you guys. This is in a classroom. I'd like some strategies. What's the highest we could hope for? I'm waiting for the moment. The moment has come. Do I have an answer? No, I must empty so that it can come. And then with grace, akahai and olu olu, gentleness and strength, lokai. What's my aloha response? First of all, Mary, this isn't personal. Take anybody who has the same background as you, and she would have done the same thing. Just a question. The other person she was bullying, was he a professional as well? Yeah, it's not personal. Second, sometimes I think we have this assumption that because of a person's title, because of their privilege, because of their perspectives, their responsibilities, there's certain things they're not going to do because they're not supposed to do because of that. And it's not true. I'm telling you right now, this woman is traumatized and she's revealing her trauma. And I see a real opportunity for you to heal your classmates. And I proceeded to tell her the story about Susan and I, about the refugees and immigrants being navigators and peace seekers. And I said, you know, Mary, sometimes I wonder if people look at Black lives, they're also refugees and immigrants when they're really navigators and peace seekers. Do they look at them like they're the problem when they're really the resource? That the courage, the knowledge, the wisdom, the resilience that they have had to endure for hundreds of years is really what we need. They're carrying what we need. There's nobody else who came to America in shackles. Nobody. Like that tree. It's so beautiful. Sometimes I wonder. I didn't tell her what it is. I just said, sometimes I wonder. As this is happening, I can feel Mary is calming down. So I said, Mary, you okay? Yeah. Just taking notes, writing this all down. You need anything? No. You sure? I'm good. Okay. I'll tell you what, I'll call you back in a few hours after your class. She said, okay. Folks, did I tell her what to do? Did I tell her how to do it? Nope. What did I share with her? I shared with her how I live and what I see. It's not theory. I'm sharing with her how I live and what I see. Most people are teaching people what they need to know, correction versus connection. So I called her, it was about 7 o'clock at night in Colorado. I said, hi, how are you? I'm good. I'm sitting here having a glass of wine. Oh, nice. I just had dinner with some of my classmates. Oh, that's nice. And how was your class? This is the greatest class ever. And she starts laughing. And I'm laughing with her. What happened? I shared your medicine with my classmates. And my professor was listening to this conversation. And she got so excited. She said, I am going to do something I have never done before. And she goes into a closet. She grabs 4 pieces of construction paper, tapes it to the wall, and she starts to write all the different types of identities that exist in the room. And then what we have to do is we have to go up to those pieces of paper with those identities and write our names where we identify with. And so I put my name on white, female, professional, queer. And she said, and we spent the entire day talking about our privileged perspectives. This is the greatest class ever. She said, you know, I've been practicing medicine for over 40 years. And today I gave people medicine. Anyway, we hung up. Of course, we celebrated. I'm so excited for her. Look what she learned on her second day. Next morning, I sent her a text. I said, you have a moment to chat? She said, yes. So we got on the phone. Did you document what happened yesterday? I did. Thank you. Most people have no belief in what I'm talking about, you guys. Thank you. Why did you call me? She reiterated the trauma. Okay. What changed in you when we spoke? Not what changed in the classroom, what changed in you? She paused and she said, you turned me. You turned me from looking at my professor and you showed me my classmates. I said, correct. And then you gave me the medicine to share with my classmates. I said, correct. And what was the outcome in the classroom? She said, joy, harmony, euphoria. Right. Does anybody believe that with what's happening in the country, that there could be a euphoric opportunity? If there's a key to lock and unlock, I believe and I know there's a key. When Derek introduced me, sometimes I think people say, Aloha, that's not the brand. It's a discipline. It's a discipline of a lifestyle. And it's not something that we know, it's something I struggle with. And it's the hardest thing I do in my life. To struggle to find that. Anybody think that an opportunity, that classroom would be euphoric? So then the question is, when I gave Mary that medicine, who was that medicine for? It was for the professor, you guys. But I couldn't tell her, oh, give this to your professor. Here, take your shot. We'll have World War IV. We skipped 3. Because it wasn't just the medicine, the story. Share this with your classmates to heal your classmates. You can imagine a Black professor listening to 9 white people having this epiphany that Black lives are not a problem, they're the resource. Why is the professor doing that? It all has to do with relevance. Black Lives Matter is about proving that Black lives are relevant. Here's 9 white people who's saying, they're the resource for us. She does not anymore need to be an activist that Black Lives Matter. She can now just be the resource. And she just went there. Of course, because she doesn't need to do it anymore. She's the resource, so she can be the resource. How much money, time, heartache, life are we spending in what we're doing to try and deal with trauma? How much are we wasting in dealing with trauma? Unbelievable. How much sleep we lose, our health. So I just would like you folks to consider, I didn't come here today to go give you a list of things to do. Derek and all my students and the ones that I just so dearly love. I'm looking at my pal Mickey, you know, and Jody, and there's so many and Paloma and Moon and Derek, and there's many, many of them here today. Because what we all are is we're all practitioners who are just studying. That Aloha is not a solution, it's a lifestyle. And our values should never be solutions. They're not here to solve our problems. They're here to help us establish our lifestyle. To reveal it that way. You know, I was one night, maybe about 6 or 7 years ago. I have such a beautiful daughter. She's 32. She just turned 32 a couple weeks ago, or last week. And right after high school, she left for college, and then she continued to work in California, and then went to China for 5 years. But she was still in California just right after school, or maybe even during, and she had just a sequence of bad relationships. And she called my wife, and she was just, you know, she was sad, upset. And she said, why does this always happen to me? Why does this keep happening, you know, with abusive guys? Where this guy was. And of course, you know, my heart is just aching, and Dawn is just trying to comfort Chantel, and she feels awful. And we got off the phone and I said, why don't you tell your story? She said, what are you talking about? Why don't you share your story? See, I see stories as medicine, right? She said, what are you talking about? I said, babe, before me, you were in an abusive relationship. But out of that relationship, the next one was me. And she said, so she called her back and told her the story. When we talk about loneliness, sometimes I think we think people by themselves are lonely. I think there's a lot of people who are around a lot of people and they're very lonely. So how do we connect with them? That's what Aloha is all about. Significant, relevant connection. Here it is. I have some questions that I want you folks to ponder over. How did we get here with an abundance of trauma? This question is not going to be answered right now. Just want you to think about it. How did we get here with this abundance of trauma? How much does it cost us? Why do we have to have groups in our community advocating for equity? And is that what they really want? Is that what they really want to do with their resources of health and time? Advocate for equity? I don't think so. So now I'm going to share with you in the next 10 minutes what that yin and yang looks like that allows us to find these answers. How did I know what was the medicine to give to Mary that would heal the professor? How did I know that medicine would be healing for Susan? Well, first of all, because I know it heals me. But how do I know? So at the foundation of almost every crisis in the history of the world, socioeconomic crisis, so we can lump in that trauma. At the foundation of almost every one of our trauma are what I call our two storms. Notice, two storms, hina and ku, yin and yang. The first storm is what I call this sense of inferiorness, that we are never good enough, that there is always someone better. This sense of inferiorness. It has been imposed through education. It's imposed through economics. It's imposed through politics. It's imposed through religion, heritage, colonization. What is colonization? Colonization is a group of people who come to another group of people and say how you live and who you are is wrong. So we're going to fix you. That's colonization. Correction. We're going to correct how you think and how you live. That's colonization. You're not good enough, so we will help you to be good enough. So at the foundation of the first storm is this sense of inferiorness. We're not good enough. And then there's a second storm. So you got this one and this one. And what is the second storm? The second storm was what I call the storm of the threat and danger of arrogance and extremism, which often comes as a result of trying to overcome the first storm. So we're trying to overcome this sense of inferiorness, and the pendulum goes boom to the second. And how it reveals itself is in abuse, bullying, domination, control, power, apathy, indifference, self-degradation, self-edification, all extremes. And what we try to do is we try to address the problem where it's showing up. Bullying. So how do we deal with bullying? We must educate bullies that bullying's bad. News flash. Bullies know bullying's bad. That's not why they bully. We're going to educate them that it's bad when they already know? How much resource do we have to squander? It's not why they bully. Every time I see a second storm crisis, all that tells me it's a second storm crisis with a first storm issue. The problem isn't here. The problem is here. They haven't overcome this sense of inferiorness, and it reveals itself on the second storm. Hitler, second storm crisis, first storm issue. Can you imagine if somebody helped that boy to be an artist? All he wanted to do was be an artist, and he was denied it. Ends up killing 6 million Jews. Is it possible that if somebody helped him to be an artist, to find the beauty in nature, that maybe he could have found beauty again? I don't know. I just asked the question. Can you imagine if somebody let Donald Trump fall down at least one time in his life instead of rescue him every time? They let him fail. It just let this boy fall down. Oh. Goes down in history as one of the biggest mice in the history of the world. We see it over here and everybody's trying to control it over here. All that tells me is he has such a low self-image because it was revealed in all the power and domination and control. And yet everybody's trying to deal with him here. I would deal with him here. The problem's not here, the problem's here. In history, there is one man recently who I believe understood this more than anyone else. And he began his life as a violent activist, fighting for equality and fairness. Almost like equality and fairness justifies violent activism. But this man spent 27 years in Robben Island prison. And during those 27 years, I believe it was then that Mandela really recognized that what he wanted for South Africa was not equality and fairness. What he really wanted for South Africa was peace and harmony, not equality and fairness. He shifted. And there was a personal price he would pay for that. And the price was he would lose Winnie and his children, because Winnie, his wife, wanted equality and fairness. So it was a personal price that he would pay to shift. That means it was such a disciplined decision. When he won in 1994, the presidency of South Africa, first time Blacks would be allowed to vote against our apartheid. President de Klerk had 3.9 million votes. Mandela had 12 million votes. And people thought this was the white or black vote because majority, they knew popular vote, Blacks are going to win. 12 million, 3.9, people say it's black or white. I said, no, it's not. Not there. There was a third candidate. He was a Zulu. He got 2 million votes. That's not an ad run. That was the black or white vote. What Mandela represented to me was what people, I believe, often refer to as a silent majority. When that kind of leadership rises up, it connects with people. So that when he won, he knew his greatest struggle was not going to be the white South African. It was going to be the black South African saying, now it's our turn. So they haven't overcome anything. What the Aloha Response is about, you folks, is recognizing these And it's to navigate, to overcome this sense of inferiorness, but do not allow it to become extreme. So we struggle between the two. So with that knowledge, that perspective that I shared with you about what I call the two storms, now I can look at everything just with that simple yin yang perspective. So let's get back to one more story about trauma. When we talk about loneliness, and I gotta apologize to my students because they've all heard all of these stories before and they must be sick of listening to me tell stories. About 4 years ago, some folks who are active in the human trafficking crisis asked me if I would do a facilitation to bring all of the parties together, law enforcement, to get them to work together. And so I spent a day with these folks, and after the first segment, we took a break. This woman walks up to me, and she's a manager at the Department of Human Services and Human Trafficking Division. And she pulls me on the side, introduces herself, and she says, I heard that you worked with children before. I have a case that I'm responsible for. And this girl is 17 years old. She's from Compton, California. She's hapai. She's pregnant. She's about to have her baby. She's still doing tricks. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to do something soon that's going to cost her life. Nobody has a relationship with her. She's been abused all of her life. And I don't know what to do. What should I do? So I said, I don't know. However, do you think she's going to commit suicide? And this woman looks at me and she starts to cry and she says, yeah. Okay, so why did I just do that, you folks? The reason why I'm doing that is because at this moment, this is not about the girl who's being trafficked. It's about the woman who just came to ask me for help. She has trauma. I don't need to know the whole story. I know she was hapai. All I know is now she's going to have to do something that she thinks is going to inspire this girl, that she's going to end her life. That's called secondary trauma, as you folks know. We have policies that cause this. So I don't know what to do, but maybe there's a role for what I call the third party intervener. Now, if you'd like me to be a third party intervener, you can go to the table with the FBI and you can tell them they can do a background check on me right now. So she walks over to the FBI's table, comes back to me and said they don't have to do a background check on you, as long as you don't charge us. I'm not doing this for money. But the other thing is they already have me in their database, so I knew. She calls her caseworker, and the caseworker calls me and says, I understand you'd like to meet with my client. I said, no, I've been asked to meet with your client. She said, well, what do you want to talk to her about? I said, I don't know. She's been abused all of her life. She doesn't have any relationship. She doesn't trust strangers, especially men. And, if I set up this meeting, there's a high chance she's not going to show up. So what if she doesn't show up? I said, well, I can tell you right now, if we don't set up the meeting, she's not showing up. But if we set up the meeting, I promise you I'll show up. She said, yeah, but she might not. I said, I promise you I'll show up. I can't control if she doesn't show up, but I can control that I'll show up. I'll be there. Okay. What are you going to talk with her about? I don't know. But I promise you, she will feel me. She will feel my spirit. And maybe that's the only thing she needs. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. but I know she's going to feel me. So she goes and sets up the meeting. I call my friend at the prosecutor's office. I said, hey, Robin, I was asked to go meet with this person, this girl who's been trafficked. I described the situation. Robin says, you need to be very careful. First time I went to meet this girl, she licked me from my neck to my ear. This girl is sick. She's got real issues, Pono, and you got to be careful. She attacks people. She has abused them. You can't touch her, but this is not safe. I said, okay, thank you. So I showed up. 15 minutes into our conversation, which lasted 2 hours, she turns to her caseworker and she says, I can't believe I'm sitting here not talking, and I just want to listen to him tell stories. And she's laughing. You know what that means? She's having an epiphany about her own control. And her caseworker looks at her and says, I can't believe you shut up too. An hour and a half into our conversation, she says, I have never had a friend like you. What's the Aloha response? Remember, Aunty Pilahi asked me, when things are good, what's the Aloha response? When it's not good, what is it? I have never had a friend like you. I will earn that privilege. I will earn it. She looks at me in shock. Has anybody ever told her it's a privilege to be her friend? She just gave me the privilege of friendship. There are many hidden messages in all of these stories. I'm going to tell you which is at the forefront of this story, and many of them. Being present. Not having the solution, being present. We want to deal with trauma, be present. After 2 hours, I said, I have spoken this entire time. The next time we get together to have lunch, you are going to talk and I'm going to shut up. And you're going to teach me everything you want me to learn about human trafficking. And she says, okay. So I leave. She leaves. I called my friend Robin. I said, so I met with her. She said, so what? Did she lick your neck? No, why should she lick my neck? She didn't lick your neck? No, what did she do? Well, when we met, she shook my hands. When we parted, she hugged me. She hugged you. She doesn't hug anybody. You cannot say that anymore. Pono, she doesn't hug anybody. Robin, stop it. That is not a true statement. You can never say that again. That is not true. This is crazy. We're the trained social workers, right? We're the ones taught to do it right. Maybe the next time we get together, maybe we should have a conversation and inventory what I did that's different from what you folks did. So we got together, asked everybody, meet in groups and start to debrief with each other all the things that you folks noticed. Oh, you're soft-spoken. You didn't want anything from her. You're kind, you're gentle, right? They said all the right things. She can feel safe, right? They said all the right things, but they missed one thing at the end. I told them, I said, you guys missed one thing. And the one thing you missed is that probably throughout this girl's entire life, Everyone who's addressed her has addressed her as either a victim or trash. And when I met with her, she was my peer. She's not victim. She's not trash. She is my peer. And it may be the very first time anyone has treated her as a peer. So why does she need to lick my neck? The same thing, why does that professor need to continue to do what she doesn't want to have to do? Now, Derek asked me to connect this all back to Monty Roberts. Because that video that came out with Monty, I've studied Monty since the 90s. And he's got it. Most people, what they do is they beat horses. They break horses, it's called. He developed join up. How did he develop that? As you saw, he would go out as a child and observe how horses interact. And his dad would beat horses. He'd break horses, but he saw this other perspective, this interaction, this relationship with the horses. And he started to do it with the horses, as you saw in that video. And he saw we could connect. When he was 15 years old, he was 11 when he first started learning this. And he said also it was an advantage that he was colorblind because he could see the silhouettes and he wasn't distracted by color. He went and he showed his dad that when he was 15 and his father beat him. He said, don't you ever do that again. That horse will kill you. Do not turn your back. It's almost like Robin says, she gonna lick my neck or she's gonna pounce on me. But what is actually happening? It's the same thing that I did with all of these stories. What he saw was that the mare would push out this horse that's acting up, push it out. While it's out there, she would face it at a 90-degree angle and keep him out. You can't come back in. What is that all about? That's about allowing the horse to notice what's going on for himself or herself as I'm out here. Out here, it's wild. There's snakes, there's cats, there's dogs. You can't come be over here. You're out. But eventually, as the horse starts to process, he wants to come in. I know you're there. Ear locked on. Starts to make a tighter circle. Head starts to bounce. Good licking and chewing. All of these things are communicating. I want to come in. I want to be where it's safe. He is not telling the horse what to think. He is allowing the horse to learn. And then the horse makes her own decision to come in. And when it comes in, it's beautiful and it's joined up. That's why that's so powerful. It's because most people are out there trying to break people. Correct, not connect. And I just want you folks to maybe consider in all that we're doing in our community, whether it's with students, with our families, with our neighbors, how we connect. Now, it wouldn't be fair to all of you folks to talk about all these exercises without offering the opportunity to learn what in the world they are. And you know what? I'm not gonna make you clean my house and sand my floor, paint my fence. But there are exercises and they don't look like them. But these are the things that I do in my life and I will do for the rest of my life. And it's hard for me. So Derek was the very first person you folks should know who ever came to me and asked, can I go and teach? Can I go and start a cohort? Most people are too afraid. Derek, he just go. He didn't know perfection or anything like that. He just go. And I'm so grateful. I mean, that's why Jody's here today, because Derek just went. He was in my third cohort, and he's been sharing. So if anybody has an interest in learning learning exercises that support me in living my life the way I live it, and some of these folks here, maybe Derek, you can work with everybody. This is not something which can be mandated to anybody you need to elect. And there are folks that I have told, no, it's not for sale. You cannot buy this from me. I'm sharing what I live, which gives me all of my opportunities and my income and everything. This is what I do in my life. I don't sell it so that I can live comfortably. I'm telling you how I live. And I believe it's one of the greatest things that we might be able to recover within our children. So if you have any desire, please let Derek know, and we can coordinate to help form a prospering Koʻolaupoko cohort. Derek, well, Mickey, you want to say anything?
Well, Mickey finds our microphone. Just wanted to say I put in the chat box Education Incubator, which is Mickey's organization in Heijong. They're offering a Foundations of Aloha course that they put together with Pono, in collaboration with Pono. They are starting their 7th cohort on February 28th. The link is there to sign up. Certainly too, I'm going to be working with a few people I know in terms of getting another cohort together. So if you're interested, please feel free to message me as well.
Yeah, mahalo everybody for just being here and sharing in Uncle Pono's beautiful stories. And thank you, Anakala, for sharing with us. We actually came through Derek's cohort first, even though I've known Anakala for probably a decade before that, and then went through one of Anakala's cohorts as well. And now we're offering our Foundations of Aloha collaboration. And thank you, Derek, for adding that in the chat. We are really happy to finally have gotten to the place where we're building our confidence as well. We just co-created our first PDE3 version of it with Office of Hawaiian Education. So that's coming up, and that information is in the chat as well. And our family, youth, and home learning cohort is open to anyone, free of charge. Our next cohort starts February 28th with Uncle Pono. And so, yeah, we invite everyone to come along for that adventure with us. We grow our practice every day. And we have been in practice since March. So this is cohort 7 cohort 6 is wrapping up tomorrow, and we'll start cohort 7 on February 28th. So yeah, we really are excited to share with everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Anakala.
Thank you, Mickey. There are many folks in our community, and that way, the reason somebody said, are there 2 cohorts? Right now, I actually have 6 cohorts going on that doesn't include Mickey. Kamehameha schools, there's 180 people, Vibrant Hawaii. Just all kinds of people are asking, Hawaiian Airlines. And all we do is just share. Give them the opportunity to practice and learn. Why? Because Aunty Pilahi said it's time to share. So it's time to share. But Derek, thank you so much for having us. I know that we're just 2 minutes over, but thank you so much for having me. And, yeah.
Mahalo, Paul, I really appreciate Mahalo Piha for sharing today all the stories, for helping us see different ways in which we can help others through trauma, and ourselves as well. And seeing Aloha not as a solution, but as a key. And so I really want to thank you. And then, of course, thank you, all of you, for joining us today. It's such a inspiration to see you out here and desiring to better our community, whether it's in Koʻolaupoko or wherever you're from. We welcome you and we thank you. We will be posting this on our YouTube channel, and as soon as it's ready to go, we'll send out a link to all of you. So mahalo again, and please have a great rest of your day.
And when we all can come together, let's have a massive potluck. we can hug and we can hone. Thank you so much, everybody. Aloha.